Commander Vorith stood at the front of the massive proving hall. His 8 red eyes slowly scanned the rows of cadets. Fear was everywhere. Dozens of alien recruits sat frozen in their seats, trying not to move, trying not to breathe too loud. That was exactly how Vorith liked it. His dark chitin armor reflected the dim blue lights above, and his mandibles clicked softly with satisfaction. This was not a classroom. This was a reality check. He crossed his 2 armored arms. "You think you understand combat?" His voice echoed through the hall. The sound bounced off the high metallic walls, making even the bravest cadets tense up. "You think your simulation scores mean anything?" A pause. "No, they don't." A nervous shift ran through the crowd. Vorith turned slightly and pointed at the giant holographic screen behind him. "Today, you will see real war." The lights dimmed further. The screen flickered to life. Battle of Crash Station. A few cadets swallowed hard. Vorith continued coldly. 42 ships lost. Over 9,000 casualties. This is what failure looks like. A faint whimper came from somewhere in the middle rows. Vorith's mandibles clicked in approval. Good. Let them fear it. Let them remember it. The footage began. It was grainy, helmet camera quality. Everything was chaos. Explosions lit up the battlefield like violent lightning. Smoke swallowed entire structures. Energy fire sliced through the air in glowing lines. And bodies were everywhere. The sound was worse than the sight. Screams. Metal tearing. Weapons firing non-stop. A cadet in the front row slowly covered her face. "Keep watching," Vorith ordered sharply. "You need to understand what real war does." The camera shook violently as the soldier ran. Something exploded nearby. The screen spun. When it stabilized again, the battlefield was worse. A heavy assault unit stomped through wreckage, tearing apart the last defensive line. Vorith wasn't looking at the screen anymore. He was watching the cadets. That was the real lesson. Break them early. Make them understand how small they were. But then, something felt wrong. In the back row, one figure didn't react at all. No fear. No tensión. Just boredom. A human. Harold. He sat there casually, one arm resting on the seat in front of him, looking like he was waiting in a dull meeting. Olive green jacket. Black turtleneck. Calm expression. Like none of this mattered. Vorith's sensory hairs bristled slightly. Humans always acted like this. Too relaxed. Too careless. Too strange. The footage continued. The soldier on screen ran through open ground, plasma fire so dense it looked like a wall of light. Suddenly, a cadet raised her voice. "Wait." Vorith's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." "Go back," she said, shaking slightly. "Just go back a few seconds." A few cadets murmured. Vorith clicked his mandibles in annoyance. Still, he rewound the footage. The battlefield replayed. Chaos again. Explosions again. Death everywhere again. "Stop, there," the cadet pointed. Vorith zoomed in. At first, nothing. Smoke. Fire. Wreckage. Then, a figure. In the far background. Walking. Not running. Not taking cover. Not even looking stressed. Just walking casually through a battlefield that should have killed everything in sight. Vorith froze. He zoomed in again. Pixelated image sharpened slightly. The figure was human. Male. Graying hair. Olive jacket. One hand in his pocket. The other holding a toolbox. Silence. Absolute silence filled the hall. Even the projection hum felt louder. Vorith slowly turned his head. All 8 eyes shifted to the back row. Harold looked up, saw the attention, and casually waved. Like this was normal. Vorith's mandibles froze halfway open. "That's not possible," he said quietly. For the first time, his voice had uncertainty in it. Harold tilted his head. "Oh yeah," he said casually. "Crash station. That was a rough assignment." Vorith blinked all 8 eyes. A rough assignment. Harold shrugged slightly. "Yeah. Supply run. Needed to deliver parts to artillery crews. I was nearby anyway." The hall went dead silent again. A cadet dropped something metallic. It clattered loudly. Vorith slowly looked back at the screen. Paused image. Harold. Walking through hell. Still alive. Still calm. Still human. And for the first time in his career, Commander Vorith did not know what he was looking at. The proving hall stayed silent. No one moved. No one even blinked properly. All eyes were now locked on one being. Harold. Commander Vorith stood frozen in front of the control panel. His 8 red eyes kept shifting between the paused footage and the human sitting calmly in the back row. Something about this did not fit reality. Not even slightly. Slowly, Vorith reached forward. His chitinous fingers tapped the console. Replay. The screen flickered. Crash station returned. Fire. Smoke. Chaos. Death. Even Vorith. Harold sighed like he was about to explain something boring. Crash station was a logistics mess. I just moved between supply points. Different routes. Different timings. Bryn immediately responded. There were orbital bombardments every 3 minutes. Harold nodded. Yeah. That slowed things down a bit. Vorith's mandibles clicked sharply. You were saying you walked through continuous orbital bombardment to deliver parts. Harold shrugged. Pretty much. A long silence followed. Then Bryn spoke again, voice trembling slightly. Harold, the survival rate in that zone was 0. Harold blinked. 0 is not very accurate. That sentence broke something in the room. A cadet whispered. He's correcting 0. Vorith raised one arm slowly. The projection changed again. New footage. Different angle. Crash station battlefield again. And again. Harold appeared. This time closer. Walking past a collapsed wall. Explosions lighting the background. And he was looking at something in his hand. Vorith zoomed in. A wrench. Harold nodded. Oh yeah. I dropped it. Silence. Then Vorith snapped. You went back into an active bombardment zone, for a wrench. Harold looked slightly uncomfortable. It was a good wrench. Bryn's tentacle hair lifted slightly in disbelief. A good wrench. Harold nodded seriously. You don't just leave tools behind. That was it. That was the moment Bryn stopped processing logically. Her 3 eyes blinked rapidly. Vorith took a slow step back. For the first time in his military career, he did not understand a battlefield survivor. He understood tactics. He understood fear. He understood death. But this human was not surviving like others. He was behaving like survival was not even part of the equation. Bryn whispered. This violates probability modeling entirely. Vorith didn't answer. He was already staring at another file. His voice lowered. Show me his full deployment history. Bryn hesitated. Then complied. The holographic wall expanded. And line after line appeared. Harold. Present. Survived. Uninjured.
Impossible zone. Impossible battles. Impossible disaster.
Vorith's voice became quiet. How many? Bryn swallowed. 43 confirmed UN survivable events. A pause. 43 times, he should have died. Harold scratched his neck. I mean, I've had some bad days, sure. That was the moment Vorith realized something terrifying. This was not luck. Not skill. Not training. Something else entirely. And it had just started to notice them watching. The archives chamber felt smaller now. Not physically, but mentally. Like the air itself had become heavier. Commander Vorith stood motionless in front of the floating holographic wall. 8 red eyes scanning. Not blinking. Not processing. Just trying to understand something that refused to make sense. Bryn hovered beside him, her translucent purple form slightly unstable now. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered like a broken signal. And Harold. Harold was still leaning against the wall. Relaxed. Hands in pockets. Like this was a routine inspection, not a breakdown of reality. Vorith finally spoke. Show everything. Bryn hesitated. Everything. Voritha's mandibles clicked sharply. Everything. The system responded instantly. The holographic wall expanded again. New files flooded the space. Hundreds. Then thousands. Harold's name appeared again. And again. And again. Each entry matched the same pattern.
Un survivable zone.
Total casualty events. 0 expected survival rate. Human personnel Harold. Present. Status. Survived. Silence spread through the chamber. Even the machines felt loud now. Bryn whispered, almost to herself. This is statistically impossible. She opened another file. Then froze. Her voice dropped. Commander. Vorith turned instantly. What? Bryn enlarged a specific record. The title appeared in glowing text. Void Breach Incident. Classified Level 9. Voritha's sensory hairs lifted slightly. That was not a normal classification. That was do not look at this again level. Bryn continued carefully. 40 ships lost. Entire fleet swallowed by dimensional collapse. No recovery of personnel or debris. She paused. Then added. Except one. All 8 of Voritha's eyes narrowed. Show me. The file opened. A distorted holographic replay flickered into existence. Space. Then tearing. Reality bending like fabric being ripped apart. Ships disappearing one by one into nothing. Screams over comms. Then silence. And in the middle of it, a cargo bay camera feed. Harold. Standing inside a half-collapsed ship corridor. Holding a crate. Looking slightly annoyed. Vorith froze. That is inside a void collapse event. Harold glanced at the projection. Oh yeah. That one. Bryn turned sharply toward him. You were inside a reality failure zone. Harold shrugged. I was picking up medical supplies from the cargo bay. Voritha's voice dropped. While reality was collapsing. Harold nodded. Yeah. People were screaming about it, I think. Bryn's tentacle hair lifted slightly in alarm. You think? Harold thought for a second. I was mostly focused on not dropping the crate. Silence. A very deep silence. Then Bryn spoke again. Harold, do you understand what a void breach does? Harold nodded casually. Things stop working normally. Voritha's mandibles clicked once. That is the most understatement I have ever heard. Bryn zoomed into another file. Her voice became tighter. Let's continue. Another event appeared. Thorax nest extermination. Vorith stiffened slightly. Even cadets feared that one. Bryn read it aloud. Biological agent exposure. Full suit degradation in under 60 seconds. Complete loss of all personnel in sector. She looked at Harold. You were inside for 6 hours. Harold nodded. Yeah. That one was annoying. Bryn blinked. Annoying? Harold sighed. My suit kept breaking. I had to patch it every few minutes. Vorith leaned forward. With what? Harold thought. Sealant tape. Found a maintenance closet. Bryn's voice cracked slightly. You repaired a failing life support suit during a biological extinction event. Harold nodded again. Yeah. It wasn't ideal. That was when Vorith stopped standing. He slowly lowered himself into a chair. Not because he was tired. Because his body no longer trusted gravity. Bryn continued scrolling. Her tone was now quieter. Almost afraid. Commander, this pattern repeats across every major catastrophe in the last 2 decades. She highlighted multiple entries. Siege events. Supernova evacuations. Planetary collapses. Reality distortions. Every single one. She looked at Harold. He is present. Harold raised a hand slightly. I do get around a lot for work. Vorith didn't respond. He just stared at the holograms. Then quietly said, This is not a soldier. Bryn turned toward him. Then what is he? Vorith didn't answer immediately. Because there was no answer in their training manuals.
No doctrine. No simulation.
No war theory. Finally, he spoke. He is a constant. Bryn frowned. A what? Vorith gestured toward the files. In every catastrophe, everything changes. Ships fail. Armies collapse.
Systems die.
He paused. But he does not. Harold scratched his head. I still get tired sometimes. Bryn ignored that. She was too deep in the data now. Her voice lowered. Commander, there is something worse. Vorith looked at her. What now? She opened one final file. It was labeled Caltra Station, Final Evac Report. Bryn zoomed in. Supernova event. Entire system destroyed. All evacuation vessels lost. She paused, then slowly added, except one. Vorith's eyes narrowed. Let me guess. Bryn nodded. Yes. She turned the screen. Harold, standing near an evacuation ship, holding an ID badge, looking mildly annoyed. Harold sighed. Oh that. I dropped my badge. Silence hit the chamber so hard it felt like impact. Bryn whispered. You survived a supernova because you went back for an ID badge. Harold nodded. The first ship was full anyway. Vorith leaned back slowly. His mandibles stopped moving completely. For the first time in his career, he had no tactical explanation.
No survival logic.
No probability model. Just one conclusion forming in his mind. Either this human was impossible, or the universe was wrong, and neither option was acceptable. The archives chamber no longer felt like a room. It felt like a contradiction. Every hologram still floated in the air, hundreds of disasters, battles, collapses, and extinction events. And in every single one, Harold, standing, walking, fixing something, or just being there. Commander Vorith sat completely still in his chair. His 8 red eyes didn't move anymore. Not because he was calm, but because his brain had reached its limit for understanding. Bryn stood beside the console, her translucent body flickering slightly. Her tentacle-like hair floated in uneven waves, like it had forgotten how physics worked. She spoke quietly. Commander, I've rechecked the probability models. Vorith didn't respond. Bryn continued anyway. Even if we assume maximum survivability training, elite genetics, advanced shielding, and perfect decision-making. She paused, then added softly, the chance of surviving even 2 of these events is effectively 0. A long silence. Harold, still leaning against the wall, raised a hand slightly. I feel like you guys are overthinking this. Both Vorith and Bryn turned their heads instantly. Harold shrugged. I just do my job. Bryn's voice sharpened. Your job takes you into UN survivable zones. Harold nodded. Yeah, that's where the work is. Vorith's mandibles clicked once, slowly this time. Not anger. Not fear. Something closer to exhaustion. Explain that. Harold pushed himself off the wall. People need supplies in dangerous places. So I deliver them. That's it. Bryn stared at him. That is not it. That is suicide with extra steps. Harold frowned slightly. Well, I haven't died yet, so I guess it's working. That sentence made Vorith's sensory hairs twitch weakly. Because it wasn't wrong. It was just impossible. Bryn suddenly turned back to the files. Her voice quickened. Commander, there is something else we missed. Vorith slowly looked at her. What now? Bryn pulled up a new dataset. It expanded instantly across the chamber. A timeline, marked with red warnings. Every major disaster. Every galactic scale failure. Every system collapse. And at irregular intervals. Harold's presence marker. She zoomed in. Look at this pattern. Vorith leaned forward slightly. At first it looked random. But then, it wasn't. Harold's appearances always coincided with the highest casualty zones. Not before. Not after. During. Bryn whispered. He doesn't avoid danger. She looked at Harold. He moves through it. A cadet-level instinct would be to retreat. A soldier would take cover. A commander would reroute. But Harold just arrived. Vorith slowly spoke. So what are you suggesting? Bryn hesitated. Then said it. That danger does not eliminate him. A pause. It avoids him. Silence cracked through the room again. Harold blinked. I don't think danger avoids people. Bryn immediately replied. It shouldn't be possible. Vorith stood up slowly. His chair creaked behind him. All known survival doctrine is based on one principle, he said. Bryn nodded. Reduce exposure to risk. Vorith's eyes locked on Harold. And yet this human. He gestured at the floating disasters. Walks directly into maximum risk zones. Harold scratched his head. I don't walk into them. I just arrive where I'm assigned. Bryn's voice dropped. Assigned by who? Harold shrugged. Command, usually. That answer made Vorith pause. He turned slightly toward Bryn. Pull up assignment history. Bryn obeyed instantly. More files appeared. Mission orders. Supply routes. Deployment logs. And then, a strange detail. Every single assignment Harold ever received was in a zone already classified as critical failure probability, 99 to 100%. Vorith's mandibles slowly opened. These are not normal assignments. Bryn whispered. They're statistical death sentences. Harold frowned. That sounds a bit dramatic. Vorith turned sharply. It is not dramatic. He pointed at the screen. 43 confirmed zones where entire fleets or divisions were erased. Bryn added quietly. And he was sent to all of them. Harold sighed. I don't pick the routes. A long pause. Then Bryn said something that changed the tone completely. What if the routes pick him? Silence. Even Harold stopped speaking for a moment. Vorith slowly turned his head toward her. That is not a recognized operational theory. Bryn nodded. I know. But neither is this. She gestured at the floating disasters again. Nothing about him fits any known system. Vorith looked at Harold. Really looked this time. The human stood there casually. Hands in pockets. Unarmed. Unmodified.
No armor.
No special aura. Just ordinary. And yet, the galaxy had tried to kill him 43 times. And failed. Bryn's voice softened. Commander, I think we've been studying survival wrong. Vorith didn't answer. Because for the first time, he was starting to agree. Harold glanced between them. So, am I done here? I still have a supply run. Vorith slowly sat back down. Then spoke in a very quiet voice. You're going to Helix 4. Harold nodded. Yep. Bryn's eyes widened slightly. That's the quarantine zone where ships disappear. Harold nodded again. Yeah. That's why they need supplies. Vorith stared at him for a long time. Then said the only thing left in his mind. Go. Harold smiled slightly. All right then. He turned and walked out. Calm. Normal. Completely unaware of what he had just done to every theory of survival in the galaxy. The moment he left the chamber, Bryn whispered. Vorith finished the sentence without looking at her. Then nothing we know about death is accurate anymore. Outside, a ship powered up. Harold's next delivery had already begun. And somewhere in the galaxy, something impossible was about to happen again. Helix 4 hung in space like a wound that never healed. Dark. Silent. Wrong. 3 supply ships had already vanished there without a trace.
No distress signals. No debris. No answers.
Just disappearance. Commander Vorith stood on the bridge of the observation station, his 8 red eyes fixed on the incoming signal. Bryn stood beside him, unusually still. Even her tentacle-like hair barely moved now. They were both watching the same thing. A single small transport ship. Harold's ship. Approaching Helix 4.
No escort.
No weapons visible. Just a basic supply vessel. Bryn whispered. He's actually going in. Vorith didn't respond immediately. His sensory hairs were tense. Not fear exactly. Something worse. Expectation. Because at this point, they weren't asking if he would survive. They were asking how reality would fail this time. The ship crossed the boundary, and the system alarms immediately went silent. That alone was strange. Vorith leaned forward. Report. A technician stammered. Gravity fluctuations, normalizing. Bryn turned sharply. That's impossible. Another technician spoke. Quantum interference, stabilizing. A pause. Then, signal clarity increasing. Vorith's mandibles slowly clicked. That zone has never stabilized before. On the main screen, Herald's ship continued forward. No damage.
No distortion.
No anomaly behavior. Just steady flight. Bryn's voice dropped. He's passing through the failure zone. She checked again, without triggering the failure. Vorith stood up slowly. That is not how Helix 4 works. The ship kept moving. Deeper. Into the zone where everything else had vanished. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing happened.
No collapse. No disappearance. No distortion.
Just calm space. Bryn's tentacle hair began to rise slightly. Commander. Vorith didn't look away from the screen. Yes. Bryn swallowed. He's not being affected. A long silence. Then Herald's voice came through comms. Hey, docking bay is a bit quiet out here. Static. Then again. Do you guys still need those supplies or? Vorith grabbed the console. Status report. Silence from sensors. Then, a technician whispered. All systems in Helix 4 region, normal. Vorith froze. Repeat that. Bryn checked again, faster now. Spatial collapse signature, gone. Anomaly field, gone. Ships that disappeared, no longer registering as lost. The room went dead silent. Herald's ship docked. Perfectly. Normally. Like nothing had ever been wrong with the place. A moment later, Harold appeared on the station feed, carrying crates, looking mildly tired. Docking worked fine. He paused. Also, your storage system is kind of messy here. Bryn stared at him. Helix 4 was a dead zone. Harold nodded. Yeah, I think someone just left a generator running in a bad configuration. I turned it off. Vorith slowly turned his head. You turned it off. Harold shrugged. It was making a weird humming noise. Probably not safe. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't confusion. It was fear. Bryn whispered. If the anomaly was being maintained. Vorith finished it. Then it wasn't natural. He looked at Harold. What did you just disable? Harold paused. I don't know. Some broken system maybe. Bryn checked the logs again. Her voice cracked slightly. Commander. She hesitated. Then said it. Helix 4 disappearance events are reversing. Vorith's eyes widened slightly. Reversing. Bryn nodded. Ships are reappearing. Systems are restoring. Spatial distortion is collapsing into normal structure. A pause. Then she added. And it all stops the moment he leaves the area. Harold scratched his head. So I guess it's fixed now. Vorith didn't answer. Because this was no longer survival. This was correction. Bryn turned slowly toward Vorith. Commander. I think we misunderstood his classification. Vorith spoke quietly. What is it then? Bryn's voice dropped to almost nothing. He is not surviving UN survivable events. She looked at Harold. He is resolving them. Silence. Harold blinked. I don't think I'm resolving anything. Bryn didn't respond. Because the data already had. Behind them, the station alarms flickered once. Then shut off permanently. Helix 4 was stable. For the first time in recorded history. Vorith sat down slowly. Not because he was defeated. But because everything he believed about war, survival, and probability had just stopped working. Harold adjusted his jacket. So, am I good to head back? Bryn nodded slowly. Yes. Harold smiled. Great. Got another supply run tomorrow. Vorith looked up at him. Where? Harold thought for a second.
Sector 9.
Something about a collapsing star system. Bryn dropped her console. It hit the floor without anyone reacting. Vorith closed his eyes for a long moment, then opened all 8 again. Of course it is. Harold waved. All right, see you guys later. He walked away like nothing had changed. But behind him, the galaxy had quietly rewritten its own rules. Bryn whispered, Commander. Vorith didn't respond. She asked anyway, what do we call him now? Vorith looked at the empty space where Harold had been, then at the still stable Helix 4 readings, and finally said, I don't think we have a word for it yet. Outside the station, Harold's ship jumped to the next disaster zone, and somewhere in the universe, something that should have ended everything was about to be fixed again.